El Nuevo Sol, Televisión.
I'm proud and humbled to ask what I think is one of the core questions about immigration reform. How do you define America? I think it's a very simple and complex question that confuses and I think frightens some people. I don't really consider myself an activist or an advocate. I'm not a leader. I am not an organizer. What I am is a storyteller. I'm a filmmaker, I'm a writer, who spent more than a decade as a journalist. And this nearly 2 years kind of experience now going around the country talking about immigration, there are times that I still wish that I was just writing a story, that I wasn't so much a part of the story, that I'm just like working on this really long article and on a film, but it is what it is. Why is immigration always presented as a problem and never as an opportunity? In an interconnected, globalized world that speaks many tongues, don't we want as many different people as possible with many different sorts of skills in this country? I think those are pretty basic questions. So 2.5 years later, when I was 16, when I went to the DMV to get a driver's permit and I showed the woman my green card, she said mine was fake. So that's when I realized that Mexican Jose and Filipino Jose were actually in the same boat. The next 2 years were probably the most critical years for me. The following year, my English teacher, Mrs. Dorr, said I was asking too many annoying questions and I should do this thing called journalism. I had never heard of what journalism was. We didn't read newspapers and I couldn't write English all that well. But then she sent me to this journalism camp. And you know, when you're a journalist, there's a thing called a byline. You know, when you buy, say, Antonio Vargas. And I was 17, and I'm like, wait a second. If they said I can't be here because I don't have the right papers, so what if my name is on the paper? I figured that means that I existed because my name was on a piece of paper. So why don't I just write a lot of these stories? I've written like 800 news stories since I was 17. How can they say I don't exist, you know, if I'm all over Google? I've interviewed Beyonce, Al Gore, Hillary Clinton. I've written for some of the top news organizations in this country. How can they say I don't exist? That was one salvation in my head. Then the next year, when I was 18, during a U.S. history class, we watched this documentary called The Life and Times of Harvey Milk. I don't know if you know this documentary. The last line of the documentary says, if a bullet should enter my brain, let that bullet destroy every closet door. And I was sitting in the back of room 102, and I don't know what happened to me. I raised my hand and told the class, oh, I'm gay. And then I stormed out and went to the bathroom. Even though I came out of that one closet, it took me like 12 years to come out of another one. And I was able to do that. I was able to lie my way into getting jobs because of 2 pieces of documents with 2 sets of numbers. The first one was a thing called a social security card that my Lolo actually bought for me. How much it did cost, I don't know. All I knew was the number wasn't valid for work. But when I told my Lolo that I wanted to work at the subway to make sandwiches, he drove us to Kinko's, and he cut a piece of white tape and he put it on the top of the line that says not valid for work. And we made 20 photocopies. So that's what I gave the San Francisco Chronicle, the Washington Post, the New Yorker, and the Huffington Post. That whenever you talk about immigration, it's not just about the U.S.-Mexico border. My border was the Pacific Ocean. So I don't know what you're talking about. That immigration is actually about family. So out of 20 people in my family, I am the only person in my family who is undocumented. I'm part of what people call a mixed status family. So that's the reality of creation in America. 17 million people live in a household where one other person at least is undocumented. The first person I ever told that was undocumented was my high school choir teacher, Mrs. Denny. She said the choir was going to go to Japan for a tour, and I told her that I couldn't go because I didn't have the right passport. And she goes, "What do you mean you don't have the right kind of passport?" "I don't have the right kind of passport." Then I told her, and then the next day she told the class we're going to go to Hawaii instead. And here's to me the most pernicious one. What about illegal don't you understand? So we can talk about the inaccuracy of the term. Being in America without papers is a civil offense, not a criminal one. We can talk about that. We can talk about the fact that in a country that believes in due process of the law, calling an immigrant illegal is like calling a defendant awaiting trial a criminal. Right? We can talk about the fact that calling people illegal is actually imprecise, especially right now when the president issued deferred action to undocumented young people. So the Dreamers, if you qualify for deferred action, have temporary status, which means that they're not illegal anymore, as the Los Angeles Times still managed to call them. But I think for more than any other reason, something is terribly wrong when we call people illegal. Actions are illegal, not people. Never people. Illegal is used as a slur, a way to criminalize people, particularly Latinos. When really that's someone's mom you're talking about, that's someone's dad, that's someone's uncle, that's someone's family. No human being is illegal. It's as simple as that. No human being is illegal. I'm an American. I'm just waiting for my country to recognize it.